Welcome to another episode of Retail Media Thursdays with me, David Cifuera from Skai. Today we're speaking to the brilliant Larisa Dumitru from GroupM. So we're going to grab a pint, grab some lunch, and we'll see you up there. So welcome, Larisa, to Retail Media Thursdays here with Skai. Could you just introduce yourself and your role?
Thank you so much for having me. So I'm the head of e-commerce at GroupM EMEA. So I'm responsible for the set of products and services that we offer across the region. Like I like to say, I have the very challenging job of finding one-size-fits-all solutions for a region that's so famously fragmented. And I get a lot of people asking me, like, what is it that you actually do in retail media? Like, what is retail media? And I think that at the end of the day, our job is to help clients grow their online business in a profitable way. So if you think about it, my job mainly revolves around A, identifying what are the levers that we can pull to drive that growth, B, understanding how we can combine them for the most effective result, and C, deploying that across the markets and the agencies that fall under GroupM.
Great. We're going to get on to Europe and the fragmented market in a bit, actually. But before we do, you have your peak of the week, something that's been either interesting to you around retail media or something new that you've seen that we like
David,
to discuss.
this is the peak of my week. What are you talking about?
This is your peak of the week. That's true.
But now, in all fairness, it's really hard to pinpoint. I think that retail media as a craft is just getting bigger and better every week. So it's really hard to have a boring week or even day when you work in e-commerce.
Yeah, I agree. Everything is changing so quickly.
I know, so fast moving.
Yeah, which is great. It's a great place to be.
I fully agree.
And as a great place to be, where are we today? And tell us about the pub.
So we are at the Green Man in Fitzrovia. And I chose this pub because of the location. So my first media job in London brought me to Fitzrovia. So it's an area that I really love. And it's an amazing pub, look around. Yeah,
no, I agree. This area has brought back many memories, spending many a Media Thursday here, actually, to be fair.
I know. Good old days.
Yeah, they definitely were. Right, we'll get on to the questions.
Sounds good.
So Larisa, you mentioned earlier about your European remit. I'd love to talk about the complexities of the European market, and really, I guess the fragmentation. But what I'm thinking about is, how are you seeing the maturity of different European markets when it comes to, the publishers, the tech providers, the agencies, and ultimately the advertisers, and what unique complexities are the advertisers facing right now?
I love that question, David. And funnily enough, I was looking at this the other day, and we are at the GroupM level actively tracking the retail media maturity across 150 retailers across EMEA. And fair enough, some of the retailers, they are present in multiple markets, but that doesn't mean that the retail media offering is the same across those markets. Some of them activate through retail media networks, such as Criteo, so that makes things easier, but again, the offering is not consistent across the market. So saying that the European landscape is complicated, I think it's a bit of an understatement, but the challenge is that the complexity doesn't necessarily stem from how mature the retail media offering is. It actually stems from how fragmented the landscape is. And I think it makes sense, if you think about it, like Europe is not a country, to your point, it's a continent with so many countries and so many different behaviors. And if you look at shopping behaviors, they really vary across the countries. So online grocery is a really good example. If we look at online grocery, the penetration is really different across the markets. So you have markets like UK and France, where it's really high and it keeps on ramping up. And then you have markets like Italy, where it's still in its infancy. So if I were an online grocery retailer, obviously the incentives for me to grow my retail media offering in the UK are a lot higher than in Italy. So obviously the region is going to develop in a very fragmented, unique way. Another thing to consider is also how business relationships evolved in Europe. So if we think about the trade ecosystem in Europe, it's a lot more complex and developed than in the US. So if we look at the spend, CPG companies spend around 55% of their commercial budgets on the trade ecosystem. So obviously that really complicates the relationship between the retail teams, the trade teams, the sales teams, the marketing teams. So I think we have a lot more dynamics at play than in the US. But at the same time, we need to be grateful for the unique opportunities that we have in Europe. So the most obvious one is the GDPR, right? Which requires informed opt-in from users before they are being targeted with ads. And that makes it really hard for advertisers to tap into third-party data. And then the beauty of retail media is that it's built on first-party data. So it becomes an industry that's kind of like future-proofed, even in the unlikely demise of the cookie. So advertisers have the access to a very unique audience that can be found only in that retail media ecosystem.
Totally understand. And I guess it makes it a really interesting part of the business to work in. And I guess for you, you're there to task with, I guess, bringing all this together from a European perspective.
Exactly.
So, a lot to do still, I guess.
Exactly, lots to do. And, there is no boring day, as I said.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, I guess working at an agency can make things easier, and there's probably some challenges and complexity to it as well. So I'd love to talk about how retail media sits within the structure, I guess, in some ways. So we've been involved in search and social here at Skai for 16 years. And when the emergence of retail media came into play, we saw lots of advertisers and agencies managing their retail media by almost taking existing search and social buyers and sort of putting them into those new roles within retail media. How do you see this from your perspective? Can retail media be managed in the same way that search and social was, as almost like pure media channel, or do you think it's different?
You know what I'm about to say.
I teed you up. It's where
So retail media is a different kind of beast. And I think that the clue is actually in the name, retail, because retail algorithms, they work in a very different way. So typically retail algorithms would be defined as a ranking process that decides the position of a product triggered by a specific search keyword. And if we look behind the hood, so each retailer is going to have its own different algorithm. But mostly this algorithm consider elements such as the sales history, the conversion rate on the page, the content on the page, the rating of the product, the return rate of the product. So a whole, range of elements that sit behind that algorithm. And as a marketeer, you can throw money at the bids, but if the other criteria behind the algorithm are not met, you're not gonna win the bid. Like computer is just gonna say no.
Yeah.
So before activating any kind of retail media campaign, we do this very detailed retail readiness check.
Yep.
So when you do a retail readiness check as a marketeer, the questions you ask yourselves are, do I have enough inventory? Is the inventory enough to last me for the next, let's say, 5-6 weeks? Is the conversion rate on the product page healthy? Is the content on the product page designed to convert? Is the rating of the product high enough? And do I have enough reviews for the product? Is my return rate for the product low? And unless you can check all of these boxes, it doesn't even make sense to start thinking about retail media tactics like, the placements, the targeting, the bids, and so on. And it's also worth noting that this is not a check that you do before activating a campaign. It's not like a one-off kind of like retail readiness check. You need to do it throughout the campaign. Yeah. And I think we need to move away from the belief that retail insights are there for the retail and the sales team to analyze. Retail insights are very much media triggers, and they can really, really impact the effectiveness of your media.
That's really interesting, and I think retail readiness is something we're looking at a lot. We're thinking about how we bring almost that retail readiness score into our grids.
Exactly.
So there's some really cool stuff that we can do with technology there as well. So one to come back on.
Definitely.
And Larisa, the lines of, I guess, brand and performance marketing are definitely blurring, but I'd love to talk about that in the retail media context. So do you think brand and performance can play nicely amongst each other in retail media? And have you seen any good examples about that working?
To be honest, I think it's a false dichotomy between retail media and brand media. And I think it mostly originates from the fact that people don't really understand what retail media is. And they think that retail media is search placements on Amazon, and that's about it. But the reality, especially with mature retail media offerings, is that they come in many shapes. So you can have search placements, and you can have video formats, you can have audio ads, you can even have like custom build advertising. So if we look at maybe Amazon DSP would be the best example. So Amazon DSP allows advertisers to use the retailer's first-party data to find the right audience and then target them on and off Amazon. And they can target them with search ads, they can target them with audio ads, with video ads, with Fire TV ads, anything you can imagine. And in terms of targeting, there is like a wealth of targeting that you can unlock. So let's say that as a brand, you want to look at the people that landed on your page but didn't convert. Easy. Or you want to look at the people who haven't bought your brand in the past 5 months, let's say. Again, totally feasible. Or you want to go even broader than that, and let's say that you are a consumer electronics brand and you want to target people who've just moved houses and they are in the market for a washing machine. Again, really easy. And this is one of the reasons why we see Amazon really cementing their position as a media player rather than just as a retailer. And we see more and more non-endemic brands tapping into the Amazon DSP and using their audiences to find their people off Amazon and then drive them to their own direct-to-consumer website. So it's really interesting to see how that dynamic changed and how Amazon is now being seen as a media player. I mean, obviously, this is not to say that, all media is now retail media or that performance media is more important than brand media. That's not the case. But I do think that we are going to see more and more transactional elements sneaking into brand media. So if you think about connected TV, for example, TV, it's a placement that's very much upper funnel. But now with the opportunities that connected TV offers, you all of a sudden have that transaction possibility. And people can choose to convert or not, but at least they have the choice now.
Yeah, I agree. I think, we're finding that, even the use of the term funnel, especially with reference to retail media, it doesn't really happen now. Although I will say, I did use the term brandformance the other day, and it didn't go down well, but maybe it's still there.
People are still very attached to the idea of brand media, and that's fair enough, but there is an infamous collapse of the funnel happening, and we just, we can't deny it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Larisa, in most of the conversations we have with advertisers or brands, I think the term customer centricity is really at the center. So in retail media, which is pretty complex, pretty siloed, as we spoke about earlier, and effectively just a whole new list of walled gardens, how are you seeing either data or technology come into play in retail media to help gain this kind of idea of customer centricity? What kind of innovations are you seeing? And also, I guess in some ways, what do you think is missing?
I love this conversation around walled gardens, and I think we've been having it for a few years now. But at the end of the day, I think we need to be pragmatic about it. Like, yes, walled gardens exist, and they're gonna be around for the next few years, so we're just gonna have to deal with it, I guess. But I think that retailers, they need to go further improving the value of retail media outside basic media measurements like return on ad spend or cost per click.
Yep.
And to be honest, I think agencies and brands, they're doing an amazing job at really pushing retailers in providing better data. So I'm really excited in the future to see measurements such as new to brand rate or incrementality becoming more common in the reports that we get from the retailers. And I think we also need to have a wider conversation about attribution models, because we all know that different retailers apply different attribution models to their media. And not only that, some retailers apply different attribution models to their different media placements. So as a marketeer, it's really hard to compare the performance between the different retail media channels and make rational decisions when it comes to media investment. So I also think we're gonna see a lot more flexibility when it comes to the attribution models, which is really exciting. At the same time, we need to recognize that building a walled garden, it's a very expensive exercise. So I think that most of the European retailers are gonna tap into retail media networks, such as Criteo.
Yeah.
And fair enough, you can make the point that Criteo in itself, it's a walled garden, right? But it does offer some consistency when it comes to the shopper view, when it comes to the targeting opportunities, creative opportunities, measurement, and so on. There are also more, I would say, evolved conversations around topics like clean data rooms and so on that we're having with the clients. So brands are really starting to try and join the dots between the disconnected data points that they have in a compliant privacy way. But if you ask me, and if I look at the advertising as a whole sector, I do think that retail media is the most exciting place to be. I mean, obviously I'm biased about it because I work in retail media, but yeah, I think we're gonna see a lot of movement in the next couple of months.
Great. Well, look, it's been great having you on.
Thank you so much for having me.
We like to end by doing a quick fire round of questions. You obviously don't know what these are, so I'm just going to ask you some questions. They're generally off the top of my head,
okay.
And then you just have to quickly think of an answer. So we'll start with your favourite Friends character.
My favorite Friends character? Oh God, I don't like Friends. How about that? But no, I would say Ross. I really like Ross.
Fair enough, fair enough. Your favourite city break?
Lisbon.
No, I just got back. Absolutely loved it. Food there is incredible. All right, and going on that, favourite food then?
Oh God, seafood. Any kind of seafood.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Favourite film?
In the Mood for Love, the Chinese one.
There you go. And final one will go, Friends isn't, you don't like Friends, so what is your favourite TV show then?
Well, this is not surprising, right? Mad Men.
Definitely
Mad Men.
Yeah, you live in the advertising industry.
Exactly.
Fair enough. Well, look, thank you, Larisa, for being on Retail Media Thursdays. It's been great having you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
Thank you.